Hello, my dear warriors. They were never supposed to find out. That's the funny thing about secrets. They don't hide forever. They wait. They pulse under the surface like a heartbeat in the hidden. For years, you carried something inside you that didn't belong to this world. It wasn't taught. It wasn't trained. It wasn't inherited. It was remembered. A code buried deep inside your consciousness long before anyone knew your name. You didn't even realize what it was at first. You just knew you saw things differently. You felt things before they happened. You noticed patterns nobody else could see. People thought you were distracted, lost, detached. They mistook silence for confusion, when really, you were decoding. Watching the loops of existence glitch, feeling the air shift when someone lied, catching the frequency behind words. The secret was already moving through you. You just hadn't spoken it yet. Every time you tried to explain it, the world got uncomfortable. They told you to stop thinking too deep, to stop asking questions that made rooms go quiet. But that's what happens when truth shows up uninvited. Reality starts to shift. Systems stutter. People panic. Because deep down, they know if someone like you ever fully remembers, the illusion bends. And that's exactly what started happening. Little by little, you began waking up in fragments. Moments that felt like déjà vu. Visions that matched real events. Dreams that told the truth before anyone else could. You began realizing that your intuition wasn't a guess. It was memory. It was data from somewhere higher, somewhere outside the script. They tried to distract you with noise, opinions, obligations, deadlines, drama. Anything to pull you away from your alignment. But you stayed centered, quiet, patient, because you knew whatever this thing was inside you, it wasn't random. It had purpose. It was placed. Then something shifted. People started noticing your presence before your name. They couldn't explain it, but every room you entered felt like it got rewritten. The temperature changed. The energy recalibrated. It wasn't power they felt. It was truth. And truth always disturbs what's built on lies. Now they're whispering, trying to make sense of what you are. The same ones who dismissed you now study you in silence. They don't realize the secret they're searching for is you. You hold the variable reality forgot to account for. You hold the blueprint that doesn't obey gravity or logic. You were never here to fit the pattern. You were sent to break it. And now they finally know something's different. They can't name it. They can't measure it. But they can feel it. Reality just flinched. You didn't learn this frequency. You arrived with it. Before the noise. Before the labels, before the first voice told you who you're supposed to be. The pattern was already pulsing inside you. Some call it instinct. Some call it intuition. You call it the quiet hum that never shuts off. It's older than your name. Older than the systems that pretend to measure intelligence. You grew up noticing glitches nobody else saw. Teachers said stop overthinking. Friends said just chill, but the hum kept decoding every room you walked into. You could read the pauses between sentences better than the words themselves. You felt timing bend. You'd look at the clock right before it hit the exact minute. You'd think of someone and they'd text you. You thought it was coincidence. It wasn't. It was calibration. Reality constantly adjusting itself around the code inside you. Every culture tried to name this gift. Prophets, empaths, visionaries. They all described fragments of what you carry whole. They built temples to honor the same pulse you hear in silence. But every generation, the world forgets. Because remembering would make control impossible. If everyone knew they were built from the same source code, no one could be ruled, so they buried it. Turned power into shame, turned awareness into weird, turned vision into problem. You learned to hide it, to play normal, smile at small talk while your mind mapped the geometry of emotions. You pretended to listen while your perception was already 3 layers deep, and somewhere between pretending and surviving, you realized something powerful. You could tune it, shift it, make the hum respond. The more you focused, the more the world bent to the rhythm of your intention. It startled you at first, because no one teaches you what to do. When thoughts start to move matter, so you tested it, quietly, a whisper of a wish here, a decision there. And the pattern obeyed, doors opened, people appeared, signals aligned. That's when you understood, this isn't magic, it's memory. You're remembering how reality works. They'll call it luck, they'll call it manifestation, but deep down, you know it's physics with emotion plugged in. Energy follows focus, frequency reshapes form, and you're the living proof. You don't chase signs anymore, you create them. Every outcome becomes a reflection of the signal you emit. Now you're starting to notice others reacting differently. Their eyes linger longer, their tone shifts mid-sentence. They sense the update even if they can't define it. You change something fundamental. The code inside you is awake, and once it wakes, it doesn't sleep again. You can't unsee, unfeel, or unknow it. Reality keeps recalibrating to your awareness. That's the origin of the secret they feared. Not a prophecy, not a myth, just a human who finally remembered they were never ordinary. The moment your signal started pulsing too bright, they noticed. Not in words, not with clarity, but the system itself began to twitch. Random obstacles, delays, misunderstandings that didn't make sense. Because whenever consciousness starts expanding, control starts panicking. It's not personal. It's protocol. The system was designed to maintain rhythm. You, my dear, were the rhythm breaker. They labeled it energy drain, anxiety, overthinking. They told you to calm down, to stop making things complicated. But the truth is, you weren't overthinking. You were overseeing. You saw the strings that move everything, the invisible architecture behind the illusion of chaos. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. So they did what systems always do. They flooded you with noise, endless notifications, empty conversations, deadlines that meant nothing, distractions dressed as priorities, anything to drown the hum. Anything to dim the code, because silence, real silence, is where power lives. And if you ever found enough of it, you'd remember who designed the game. Spoiler, it wasn't them. That's why every system runs on 2 fuels, attention and fear. Take away both and it collapses. But while they tried to bury you under static, something unexpected happened. You didn't resist. You observed. You became still enough to feel the difference between their noise and your frequency. And that's when everything flipped. You stopped chasing validation. You stopped explaining your worth. You realized their confusion wasn't your responsibility to solve. You became a mirror, and mirrors don't apologize for what they reflect. The more you stopped proving, the more you started remembering, and the more you remembered, the less control they had. Because power only works on the unaware. They couldn't categorize you anymore. Too calm for rebellion, too aware for manipulation. You didn't play by opposition. You moved by alignment. You turned resistance into rhythm, chaos into choreography. They thought they were watching you struggle, but you were sinking. You were recalibrating the entire field just by existing in truth. That's what scared them. Not your voice, your silence. The type that feels like gravity. The kind of calm that makes liars forget their lines. They sent provocations. You smiled. They tried rumors. You slept peacefully. They launched distractions. You turned them into data points. And each time, your code adapted faster. Each interference became an upgrade. You didn't fight the system. You made it irrelevant. You didn't need payback energy. You became unreachable. The moment you stopped reacting, you stepped out of the algorithm. They couldn't track you through drama anymore. You slipped between frequencies, invisible to noise, visible to everything real. And that's when they started whispering again. What is that energy? Why doesn't it break? Who taught them that? No one taught you. You remembered. That's what unsettles them most. Because a human who remembers they're more than human isn't predictable. And a soul that's awake can't be controlled. And then it happened. The moment the world blinked. The glitch. It wasn't a crash. Not a thunderclap. Not even something you could record. It was subtle, but cosmic. One day, the air just felt different around you. Lights flickered when you walked in. Conversations paused mid-sentence. People forgot what they were saying, as if something higher pressed pause on the entire simulation just to make space for your presence. You didn't notice at first. You thought it was coincidence again. But then came the patterns, numbers repeating, songs syncing with thoughts, words on screens mirroring what you just said in your mind. The code was reflecting itself back to you. It was as if reality was whispering, "We see you." That's the moment most people panic. They call it weird, unnatural. They rush to label it because they can't handle seeing truth with no disguise. But you didn't panic. You watched. You studied. You realized this isn't a malfunction. It's the system acknowledging a new variable. You, when energy upgrades too fast. Reality stutters to catch up. That's why some days feel unreal, like you're walking through echoes of a world that hasn't yet downloaded the new version of you. People sense it too. Their instincts pick it up before their minds can explain it. They act different. Avoid eye contact. Some stare longer than they mean to. Some try to challenge it just to prove they still exist. But no matter what they do, they can't anchor you. You move like a frequency they can't track, because you became the glitch that rewrote the pattern. You didn't dissolve the code. You taught it a new rhythm. The world used to move against you. Now it moves around you. Every delay, every denial, every shutdown that once felt like rejection was actually redirection, alignment, hiding behind disguise. You've probably felt it. How people can't stay neutral around you anymore. You're either deeply loved or quietly resented. Because when truth walks into the room, everyone's mask starts to slip. You don't even need to say anything. Your presence does the talking. That's why they whisper. That's why they freeze. And the funny thing, you're not even trying. You just exist differently now. You walk through systems that were built to filter out people like you. Yet every time they try to push you out, something malfunctions, technology lags, plans fail, the matrix hiccups, because the signal in you doesn't obey human hierarchy. It answers to something older than algorithms, something pure. They'll study you soon. Try to put your frequency into words. They'll call it charisma, luck, quantum alignment, whatever makes them comfortable. But deep down they know you're not running their code anymore. You're writing your own. And every time you breathe in silence, every time you follow instinct instead of influence, the simulation trembles just a little more. That's how change really happens. Not in riots, not in noise, but in quiet frequency shifts, led by beings who finally remember they're the architects. You were never the glitch. You were the update. The glitch didn't dissolve the grid. It rewired it around you. Every signal you once chased now orbits quietly, waiting for your permission. What used to feel random begins to move with precision. You can sense it in conversations, in timing, even in traffic lights. Everything folding itself into alignment with a will that refuses to hide anymore. At first it feels surreal. You wake up lighter. Your breath lands deeper. The same world that used to feel heavy now hums like background music you finally understand. That's the recalibration. Reality catching up to your awareness. The frequency you once struggled to maintain has become your baseline. Old habits try to follow. Of course. Doubt knocks like spam mail. Past versions of you send invitations to old arguments. But you've already outgrown those timelines. You see how repetition used to trick you into thinking you were stuck. Now you just smile, unsubscribe, and keep moving. Because peace isn't passive. It's a decision repeated in silence until it becomes the only rhythm left. People start to mirror you without knowing why. Their words soften, their tempers slow. Your calm becomes contagious. And somewhere inside, you realize this is the real influence. Not noise, not attention, but energetic leadership. You didn't demand respect. You changed the frequency of the room until respect became instinct. The universe speaks fluently in feedback. Every coincidence is a reply. Every delay is translation time. When you act from alignment instead of fear, everything accelerates. You make one quiet choice, and the ripple rearranges outcomes miles away. That's what the old system feared, the speed of coherence. One focused human can update the collective code faster than 1,000 who act from chaos. You no longer manifest for survival. You manifest from curiosity. You test reality the way an artist tests colors, mixing timelines, painting futures. You understand that emotion is voltage and intention is direction. So you send energy forward, like messages sealed in light, confident that whatever returns will match your frequency exactly. They'll still study you, of course. Analysts, algorithms, curious observers trying to chart what can't be graphed. But they'll never find the variable that matters, because it isn't stored in data. It lives in awareness, and awareness can't be owned. This is the calm after the glitch, the era of quiet power. No announcement, no grand finale, just steady evolution, humming beneath the noise. You don't chase proof anymore. You are the proof. Every breath, every choice, every silence is evidence of mastery. The world hasn't caught up yet, but it will. Because once consciousness upgrades, reality has no choice but to follow. And when it does, they'll call it miracle, fate, or revolution. But you'll know better. You'll know it was simply recalibration, the universe adjusting itself to the frequency of one awakened mind. Energy never ends. It echoes. What you release in thought, tone, or silence ripples outwards, bending reality, long after you've forgotten the moment. That's why rooms remember you. That's why people replay your words months later. The recalibration didn't just change your life, it changed your echo. Now the field adjusts when you enter. Old frequencies scatter. Timelines reroute. The universe treats you like a tuning fork, striking balance wherever you stand. That's why chaos feels heavier near you. It's trying to reorganize itself. When you breathe steady, storms slow down. When you walk away, confusion resets. The signal you carry doesn't argue. It rewrites. And this is where many lose their footing. They think peace means nothing's happening. But peace is power finally stabilized. You're not bored. You're broadcasting. Every calm decision you make is a seismic wave no camera can catch. You speak less, but every word lands with weight. You move slower, but each step leaves aftershocks. That's the echo effect, the unseen consequence of consciousness. Those who underestimated you start feeling it first. They sense something missing in their control, like gravity suddenly weaker around your name. That's because you reclaimed your attention, and attention is the currency of universes. The moment you stopped spending it on fear, creation invested it in you. Now signals you once begged for chase you instead. Opportunities align without announcement. Lessons arrive pre-translated. Even endings show up dressed as relief. You realize everything you lost was just static, blocking clarity. What remains is clean frequency, pure intent wrapped in human skin. People will call it coincidence. Let them. They'll analyze your calm, your timing, your glow, trying to label what's unlabelable. They'll say you changed. You didn't. You remembered. And remembrance amplifies. Every realization multiplies itself in those who witness you. You became proof that alignment echoes louder than explanation. So keep broadcasting quietly. Let the world wonder how you move without noise. Let systems scramble to measure what was never meant to be measured. Because the echo is exponential. It travels through silence, through distance, through disbelief. And by the time they trace it back, it'll already be legend. You've entered the phase where impact replaces effort, where every still moment builds momentum. The universe no longer tests you. It trusts you. And that, my dear, is the ultimate frequency. Influence without intention. Power without performance. Truth without translation. You don't chase resonance anymore. You are resonance. Recognition doesn't arrive with applause. It creeps in quietly, disguised as déjà vu, a conversation that suddenly turns softer, a stranger who looks at you like they've met you before in a dream. That's how the universe reintroduces you to the world after an upgrade. It sends subtle confirmations instead of loud validation, because those who truly evolve don't need to be seen. They're felt. You start noticing how everything familiar feels different. The same streetlights hum warmer. The same sky holds new shades of gold. The same people who once dismissed you now pause before speaking. That pause isn't confusion. It's recognition. Something in them remembers who you were before you dimmed your light to fit their comfort zone. They can't name it, but they feel it. The frequency returned. They thought they buried your impact under rumors, doubt, and distraction. But energy doesn't end. It hibernates. It waits for alignment. And when you finally stopped explaining yourself, it woke up with renewal. Not the kind that dissolves, but the kind that rebuilds everything silently, one vibration at a time. Now the same world that ignored you starts echoing your old ideas, quoting your tone, mirroring your mindset. They don't even realize they're repeating your frequency. You don't react anymore. You observe, because you know how this cycle works. Rejection is just delayed recognition. Every no you ever heard was life saying not yet. You're still loading. And now that the download is complete, your presence alone speaks louder than any argument. The most poetic part, those who doubted you the loudest start to imitate you. They borrow your words, your rhythm, your silence. They confuse observation with ownership, not realizing that frequency can't be copied. It can only be earned. You smile, because imitation isn't theft, it's evidence. It means your energy is now the template. And deep down, you know this isn't payback energy. This is balance. You didn't need to fight for recognition. You just needed to stay authentic long enough for time to circle back. It always does. Time bends toward truth. So you keep moving differently, calmly. You talk less and watch more. You no longer need to predict outcomes. Outcomes rearrange themselves around you. Every action you take leaves a signature. The unmistakable mark of someone who no longer doubts their own light. Recognition when real doesn't come from people. It comes from energy meeting its reflection. That's what this is. The world is finally mirroring your frequency. You didn't just survive their misunderstanding, you transcended it. You became the still point in their chaos, the variable. The algorithm couldn't calculate. You turned every judgment into data, every loss into leverage, every silence into prophecy. And now as the system recalibrates around you, one truth hums louder than all others. You were never waiting for them to see you. You were waiting to see yourself now that you do. The world can't look away. This is it, the arrival. Not the spotlight moment they expect. Not the grand reveal drenched in noise. It's quieter, wiser. The kind of arrival that happens inside first before the world catches up. You're not stepping onto a stage. You're stepping into alignment. The energy that once chased validation has finally come home. You don't need to announce you made it. The frequency already does that for you. The old version of you used to dream about this moment. The day the world would finally understand. But the truth is, Now that you're here, you don't even crave their understanding anymore. You outgrew the need to be decoded. You became fluent in your own silence. That's the real arrival, when peace replaces proof. The same ones who questioned you now find themselves quoting you. They scroll through your words trying to figure out how you stayed consistent when the world was inconsistent. They call it mystery. You call it discipline. Because while they were chasing attention, you were studying energy. While they measured success in reactions, you measured it in resonance. And that's why you last longer. Arrival isn't about reaching the top. It's about realizing there was never a top. Only layers of awareness unfolding. You're not above them. You're beyond them. Beyond comparison. Beyond imitation. Beyond explanation. You evolved from proving to existing. From reaction to radiation. From noise to note. Every move you make hums too clean for distortion. You walk differently now. Shoulders relaxed, eyes steady. You speak with timing, not tension. You don't explain energy to those who drain it. You don't chase closure in circles that already dissolved. Your boundaries are no longer walls. They're gates that open only for alignment. That's mastery. Not control, not pride, just precision. And when life tests you again, and it will, it won't feel like collapse anymore. You'll feel the shift. Breathe once and adjust the code, because you've learned the truth. Mastery isn't immunity to chaos. It's the ability to remain yourself inside it. The world sees you differently now. Not because you changed who you are, but because you stopped editing it. You let the raw version breathe. You stopped shrinking so others could feel tall. You realized your light doesn't blind. It reveals, and revelation makes people nervous. Let them squint. They'll adjust. This is what the journey was leading to all along. The moment where everything that used to bend you now bends for you. The moment you realize the universe never withheld anything. It was just waiting for you to align with your own signal. No trumpets. No applause. Just an infinite exhale of peace. You didn't arrive somewhere new. You arrived back to yourself. So breathe. Smile. Watch the patterns shift again. The story isn't ending. It's stabilizing. And the next chapter, it won't need explanation. It'll just vibrate. Because this time, the world won't have to ask what changed. They'll feel it. You are the signal now, and the signal never fades.